Hey everyone, today I'm going to take a look at DTOS. DTOS is now a full-blown ISO that's been put out by Derek Taylor from DistroTube. DTOS started out a couple of years ago as a post-install script for Arch. Now it is a full-blown ISO based on the Arch ISO installer. And I think this is really cool. Now DTOS, what it'll do is it'll install the QTile desktop environment. And it's configured the way Derek likes to use it on his own system. Looks really interesting, and QTile is something I used a few years ago. But overall, I thought QTile was a great environment, and I did enjoy using QTile. In fact, I still have an old QTile config that I was real happy with, and I would be happy to go back to, but I suspect Derek's is even better. So I'm going to take a look at this, and right now I'm out at the SourceForge page. Here we got our DTOS, and the latest ISO was just released a couple days ago from May 3rd, 2025. As of the time of this filming, Derek first released his original ISO for this alpha project. I think it was on April 13th of last month. I was pretty excited about it then, and I was even tempted to do a video on it, but I wanted to give it a little space just to let the alpha simmer a little bit and maybe get a little bit more mature. But now that we're up to May 3rd, we're almost a month into it, and I just can't wait any longer. So I'm going to download this. Let's jump in and give it a try. Okay, I have this downloaded now, so I'm just going to go ahead and load this into Virtualbox. This is an alpha, so it's not recommended at this time to set it up on a production machine, which is probably good advice for an alpha. But if I know Derek, it's probably already pretty stable. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into VirtualBox, and I think maybe I'll just pop into maybe Workspace 3 and open up a VirtualBox here. And then we'll just load it in. One thing Derek stresses is when you install the system here, you want to make sure that you're in a UEFI environment. And so on DistroBox here, what I want to do is I want to go up to System, and I already have this set up, but you just want to be sure in System that you have Enable EFI checked here. So as long as that's checked, you should be good. And the next thing I'm going to do, of course, is add his ISO in. So I'm going to just do that. I'm going to grab this and just kind of slide it over and make some more room. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the ISO. So I'm going to jump in here and just kind of jump to my downloads folder because I think that's where my ISO was saved. There we go, DTOS. I believe it's this guy right here. So let me go ahead and open that up. And then hit OK to save that. And now we should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. Hitting start. And I don't know what that little pop-up box is there. And here we're at the menu here. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit the first option here for the DTOS install medium. That should take us right to our prompt. So what it's doing right now is it's loading the Arch ISO, the Arch installer ISO. And it's been specially modified with Derek's script here. It'll give us direct access to the DTOS install right from the Arch ISO. So it's been very neatly modified to work together. So this is really cool. So here we're now at our DTOS login. And so all I got to do is type in DTOS install, all one word. And before I do that, actually, there was something that Derek pointed out in a previous video in response to Linux Mensch, who had mentioned that for content creators, the fonts are really small, so it's hard for the viewer to see on the screen. So Derek wrote this ingenious, clever little simple script that will make the fonts bigger. And I think it's just simply big font, if I remember. So let me just type that, big font, and it's big. Nice. That's the way to go. So very cool. Now that we got our big fonts, I'm going to go ahead and run DTOS install. And then here it did an LS block so we can see our layout here. And of course, we only have one disk. It's a 20 gig disk drive here on our virtual. So I think I'm going to go with that, which is choice number 1. And then we can go with ButterFS or Extend 4 for our partition default. And I'm fine with the recommended. Although on my personal computer, I use Extend 4 because I like it. and I forgot to press a number, so that helps. So I'm going to press 1 for Btrfs, and disk encryption, well, I'm just going to say no because we're just on a virtual drive anyway, but if it were real hardware, that's a good thing to go with because disk encryption will protect your disk. If somebody stole your computer, and even though you might have a really good password to get into your desktop, all they got to do is take out your hard drive and just hook it up to something and pull the data off. So the encryption will prevent that from happening. A little extra layer of security. So now it's going to ask to choose a kernel to install. And I'm going to go with the recommended, the Linux kernel, but you also have the choice of using the LTS or the Zen. If you like long-term support, kernels is better. You can go with 2. Zen is nice for gamers and anything in between. It's got some optimizations in there. And now we're going to select the locale. So here I'm going to go with the default, which happens to match my area of the world. So that would be en_US, which I'm going to type in. And I want to go with the UTF-8 version. That's a lot better for fonts, compatibility, and so forth. And for our layout, US, again, for the keyboard. And I'm going to select that. And now for our time zone, I'm in America, of course, so I'll do that /. And then I'm going to put in the New York time zone. I guess I don't need the caps. There it is, New York. I'll just scroll down to it. Now let's give it a host name. A host name could be anything. I think I'll just call it Toadwick PC. Now it's asking to enter a root password, and I'm just gonna, whoops, there we go. Just wanted to clear that a little bit. So for a root password, you can type anything in there you like, as long as you can remember it. Now I'm gonna create a user. Typically you wanna use all lowercase letters for doing this, so I'm just gonna keep it lowercase. And now let's give it a password. I'm thinking about using Afghanistan Bananistan for my password, but that's kind of long. But I do use it for a lot of things like my banking and, you know, all the important stuff. So, crap, I shouldn't have said it. Crap, forget I said that. I know what you're thinking, edit this out, but I already uploaded this to YouTube, so I can't even do that. So you just gotta promise me, don't tell anyone. Okay, I feel better now. Onward and upward. Would you like to install the DTOS QTile desktop? Yes, I would. So if you don't, then you'll just end up with a Arch install with no desktop environment, a headless install on a terminal. That's no fun. If you wanted to test this out anyway. So based on this configuration, would you like to install? Yes, because the configuration looks good. I got the Btrfs, no encryption for this situation. Everything looks fine, so I'm gonna say 1 for yes. A little reminder that all the data on here is gonna be wiped out. So if you got anything really important on your computer, you probably shouldn't say yes until you back it up. But I'm gonna say yes by hitting number 1, and we're off. So now it should be in the process of installing, and if everything went okay, it'll install. So right now it's running Reflector, and what Reflector does is it grabs the fastest mirrors and makes the whole process a lot quicker as it's downloading information off the internet. So I may do some pausing here along the way just to save you guys from falling asleep, or at least myself. Okay, and here we are into our desktop. The desktop is reloading. Let's take a look. And this looks beautiful as usual. Derek, he's got that artistic flair that I really like. It's kind of rare to find somebody that has a technical mindset yet is artistic as well. I kind of think of myself the same way, so I guess I can appreciate that maybe even more than most people. So here we got our, I would say this is probably the QTile bar here. I don't think he's running Polybar if I remember right. And over here we got our DTOS image. And if you click on it, then it opens up a little YAD window here with the cheat sheet with all your different key bindings, which is really cool. And if I remember right, I think Derek said that he was using a script on here that will read the config file and then put it in the YAD window here. I forgot what he called it, but that's kind of cool. So this kind of gives you easy access to a whole bunch of the key bindings here for different things. So that's a nice reference, especially if you're not real familiar with window managers yet. That kind of makes things a little bit easier. And since I'm in here, I might as well find out what launches the file manager, which I think he's using PCman FM. So if I scroll down here, it's actually probably over here on the Conky too, because we got some quick references over here. So we got terminal browser and so forth. Then we got some EMacs references there. Not seeing the PCMan FM, so let me just refer back to the add window here and see what I might see here. And I'm not catching it right off the bat here, so that's all right. I can find it in the config file. So we'll come back to that. And then here we got our workspaces, and Derek's got the workspaces denoted here by different icons. Looking nice. And then here we got our little app view here. So it looks like we got a link here to the Brave browser, and then over here to our terminal. And then of course we can click on our PCMan FM right up here without having to use a keybind, which is nice. And then I don't remember what that is. That's a little guitar, it looks like. So that probably opens. Let me click on it and find out. Okay, that opens up VLC player. Cool. All right. That makes sense. Guitar, VLC player, cool. And then to close that, I think the key binding might be Super Q. Nope. Let's try Super Shift C. There we go. Okay, so Super Shift C will close the open window there. I'm gonna hit on PCMan FM, and that's a pretty nice file manager. I think PCMan FM is probably right up there. My favorite is Thunar, but PCMan FM is a really nice, mature file manager. And I think it's pretty decent as well. Nice choice. I'm going to press Control H here to show hidden or dot files actually. And I'm going to jump in the config folder and then pop over here to QTile. And here we got our config file and our auto start scripts, which is cool. So I'm just going to open that real quick. Here we have EMacs and NeoVim for our choices, and also text editor. And I'm assuming in EMacs it opens it up in Vim. I'm not sure. I'm not really an EMacs user. For me, that's just a whole lot of unnecessary complexity that I don't really need. However, with that said, Derek did all the heavy lifting for us, because when you install EMacs, you got nothing really. You got to kind of configure it from scratch, if I remember right, which is a real pain in the butt. And for me, I wouldn't even bother. But that's just me. A lot of people would discover a whole new universe of fun with EMacs, and then discovering all the different things you can do with it under one environment. So let me hit EMacs and see what it does. Like I said, I could probably really like EMacs since it's already been configured and everything here in DTOS. So that's another reason to use DTOS. So here we go. vTerm needs vTerm module to work. Compile it? Yes, I'll go with that. And so now it's compiling vTerm here. And this is a one-time thing, I'm pretty sure, just to get everything started. And there we go, DT Max. I like that. Nice customized labeling there and everything. Emacs is more than a text editor. Cool. So now that I'm in here, I'm not really sure what to do. So maybe it didn't just open it up in there. I'm going to close that again and just run it again just to see. So I'm going to hit open with Emacs and see what happens. All right, there we go. So now it looks like we're in. That's cool. So that's all I had to do. I just had to give it a chance to let it run all this stuff. So I know nothing about Emacs. I have to freely admit that. So I'm just going to slide this up. There's probably a way to get rid of the top thing with just a simple keybind, but let's explore in here. So here we got our setup, and we got our variables declared right up here on top. And so it's using Alacrity as the terminal, Brave as the browser, and the Emacs client, of course, for what I'm doing now, among probably other things. And so then we got our different functions here, and QTile's pretty cool. I liked using QTile back in the day. The only reason I quit using it actually was because I just discovered i3 was a lot nicer to configure. Like I remember when I wanted to open up an app in a specific workspace with a keybind, I discovered in i3 that was really simple. All I had to do was just add in a bracket with the name of the workspace in it, and then boom, I was there. That was kind of cool. And QTile, I actually had to create like a function, like a dgroups function or something to do it, and it was really more complicated than it had to be, but for some reason the way QTile is written, it was kind of complicated. Fortunately, I was using Arco Linux at the time, and they already had this really nice, fancy function created to handle all that. So it wasn't really a big deal. But if you don't have that function there, it's kind of a pain. And so I'm like, little things like that just kind of bugged me. So it kind of put me off a little, and i3 became my favorite. But QTile is definitely something I would be happy with if I was on a QTile machine. So the experience of having to get in there and figure all that out really was well worth it. And I'm really happy to have all that under my belt. And getting back to the config file, here's our essentials. So we got our terminal here, Rofi. So it looks like Rofi is mod shift return. I think super shift return gets you to the like log out power menu, I think. Nope. Okay, I must have been thinking of something else. So yeah, there's Rofi, and that's looking beautiful. I like the color scheme too. That's nice. Very cool. And so we got Super W for our web browser. Super B toggles the bar. So that's good to know. So these are things I got to kind of remember. This is a nice, quick way to find stuff. I think I'll just jump out of here. Okay, so yeah, I must not actually be in actual Vim. There must be something about Vim and EMacs and everything that kind of changes the game a little bit with the way you edit. So I'm just gonna go into the old text editor. NeoVim would have been fine, I guess. Let's pop into the text editor, and then I'm just gonna do a simple copy here, Control C, and then go below, Control V. So here we can add our different key bindings. Typically what I like to do is I like to just, if I'm gonna put a key binding in for something, I'll just sit here and highlight one of these guys, copy it, and then just paste it down below, and then change it to whatever it is that I want to change it to. So that's kind of the easy way out. Let's see if there's anything in here for specific workspaces. So I'm just going to do a quick search. I think it's D group, maybe, that refers to something like that. Okay, so we got basic array for it, for D groups rules here, so that's cool. But you actually have to define it yourself if you want to do that. Or you can go out on the internet somewhere and find a config file that has that. But for me, I like having apps open in specific workspaces. Like I like my browser to open up in workspace 2 and something else to open up in 5 and so forth. As far as I know in QTile, I think that's kind of how you got to do it. And I could be wrong. There could be another way that I'm not thinking of, that I'm not aware of. So if so, chime in and let me know. So there we are. Yeah, and overall, the config file is really nicely laid out here. Very organized, easy to read. You got your key chords, D menu, items, and so forth. So really, if you're an EMacs person, it's really heavily geared in here in the config file to make EMacs a lot easier to use, which I think is cool. Like I said, I know nothing about EMacs, nothing. So I'm a total noob there when it comes to EMacs. And then here we got our labels set here for the icons. The icons correspond to these right here. If you like something different, you can just pop in here and comment out the label and put something else on. Maybe you like numbers, you can save that, and then Super Shift R. And now we got our numbers here. So easy peasy to change your labels. Or maybe you like the other deal, the dev and www. I really like the icons though. I think Derek's got it right here with the icons. So I'm gonna do that, Super Shift W to reload, change her back to the icons. Very nice. And then here we got our different layouts here, so you can click that. Here we got our monad wide, traditional tiling here, max, to have maximum windows for each item that's open, and then back to monad tall, which is where I like it. I think the default is just perfect here, so I don't think I'd change anything there. And then these are our different layouts, and you can even uncomment additional layouts if you like having some of these other type of layouts as well. And then here we got our widget default. So these are where our widgets are denoted here in the QTile bar up above. Very nice. So here you can see our first widget is the DT icon PNG file, which is this guy right here. And when you click on it, it's opening up a YAD window, which is right here, QTile keys YAD. And so that's what it's calling to open that up. Button 1 refers to your left click mouse button. In something like Polybar, you could actually assign 2 buttons to this and make it like button 1 could open up your Rofi menu, and then you could have button 2 a right click, or button 3 I mean, right click on your mouse, and then it would open the add window on the right click and a Rofi menu on a left click. That's easy to do in like Polybar, but honestly, I don't know how you would do that here on the QTile bar. I'm not even sure if you can, because if I remember right, you can't call 2 mouse callbacks, and I don't think you can go in here and just add another argument and put button 3 in there. That's probably not going to work either. So I don't know if you could actually do that on the QTile bar, but the QTile bar is really easy to work with, and so it's nice that everything's integrated in here. Here you got your group box that corresponds up here, I think, to these guys. That corresponds to your work groups up here, which we have 1 through, looks like 10 work groups there. Nice. Or workspaces, I mean. And then we got our launch bar here, and these icons and applications correspond to these up here, and then our selector there for our layouts, and then our window name, which is up here showing the current window that's open, so you can see how that changes as you hover over. Nice. And then our CPU, memory, and so forth. So any of these you can comment out if you want to take those out of the equation, or if you want to add them in, of course you can add them in. And then here we got our volume control, and if I come up here and scroll over our volume control, you can see that they're moving in increments of 3, so 52 to 48, 48 to 45, and so forth. So that's a pretty good, comfortable increment there. I like that, actually. And then we have our clock. So down here we got our clock up here, and if you click on it, you can see a notify open up here. And so it's probably using notify, lib notify, or maybe dunst notify, or dunstify, or whatever they call it. And we got that corresponding here. So that's to our clock. And then the format is set here. So if for some reason you want to use seconds, you can actually just add that in right here. And we could do like a %, uppercase S, and that would add seconds in there. So Control S to save, and then Super Shift R, and now you got seconds. Nice. That's how easy peasy it is to set the format on your clock. And I'll just put it back the way it was. So a nice widget list there. And of course you can add your own widgets in there if you want to do that easily. Then we got our screen settings and some mouse designations down here, button 1. Floating layouts here. So these are all different apps you can designate as floating. And I see he's got Tasty Charts and Tasty Trade in there. Yes, I like Tasty Trade. That's a really good exchange, actually. I use Tasty FX, actually, when I want to play with Forex. And in my opinion, that's the best for US residents, for sure. And so anything in here you can add as well. For example, if you wanted your, I don't know, PCman FM file manager to always float, then all we'd have to do is just, to make it easy, copy and paste, and then put in your WM class for PCman FM. And then, of course, up here they remind you, if you don't know what your class name is, you can use xprop. And xprop will get that for you very quickly just by running xprop and then clicking up here in the window, and then it'll give you all the info you need. So yeah, that's a once over of the config file here. And here at the end it's calling the auto start. So the auto start sh file, which is a shell script, that's something that runs one time at the startup. That's nice when you want to have things to just run once. So when you reload QTile, it's not going to run every time. There's certain things that you want to run one time, like your wallpaper restore, lock screen, and so forth. Or if you had some script up here to bring up a dialog at the beginning when you boot in, you'd want to have it in here so it's not popping up every single time you. So yeah, auto start. Also set your LX session, and here we have PyCom, XRander, setting your resolution, and so forth. So all important things. We got our dunst color scheme and so forth. So yeah, it looks like dunst is actually kind of what's running the stuff up here, displaying your disk space and so forth. So very cool. Very nicely set up. So this is looking good. So I'm just gonna pop out of there, and I don't want to save. So I'm liking it. I'm going to just close this window here and just kind of jump in. I forgot I had PC Man over here, so I'm going to Super Shift 1 and move that over to Workspace 1. And then in here, let's take a look at our menu again. So I'm going to do, I think it was Super Shift Return. And here we got our Rofi menu here, it looks like. And so we got the Brave browser as our default browser. Nice. ButterFS Assistant. Very cool. Here we got our customized look and feel. So I think that's a shortcut to LX Appearance, I'm guessing. This is a nice, easy way to change your look. Actually, I like the default look just the way it is. But if you want something different, maybe you want a light theme or something, you can come up here and set it very quickly and easily. Maybe you like a Manjaro look or an Ubuntu look. So you can get your color scheme tweaked very easily in here. Also, you can do that here through your customized color scheme. So you could go in here and just kind of tweak your windows and so forth, your different background colors, foreground, and all that. And then your icons. So right now by default, we got the tele icons in here. And we got the circle blue dark, of course, because we're in a dark color scheme. If you're in a light, then you could just change it to the light version or the circle blue. And then the mouse cursor. I'm good with the cursor the way it is, the Babada. Another style I like is just good old Edweda, which is like the traditional arrow. And then, of course, our font settings here, and any aliasing and hinting is enabled by default, so that's good to see. And then we got others, and these are both checked images and menus. I like those checked. That's really the way I would set this up myself, so very good. Good on that. And what else do we got in here? We got our VLC by default. We got Waypaper here, which is the wallpaper setter. Interesting. So I'm going to hit that and just take a look here. So let's see what Waypaper is. I've never used Waypaper. This is actually something new for me. I've always just kind of installed Nitrogen on i3. Well, this is nice. I just might use this myself. So it looks like it's kind of using Fay as the back end. This is nice. So we can pop in here and just choose something. I kind of like that scene there. So let's take a look. Just a simple click and there it is. Very nice. So Waypaper. Learn something new every day. Like I said, I'm not familiar with this app, so I just discovered something new. Good job, Derek. Very cool. Yeah, maybe I'll just kind of leave that on there. I like that. That's a nice one too. So great choices there. I'm assuming that it probably saves that wallpaper the next time you go in. So liking it. A nice selection of things here that are available by default. And then we got our fish shell. Personally, I don't like fish. Probably the first thing I would do if it was on my computer would be to change the shell to bash or ZSH. But, you know, to each his own. Here we got HTOP. And might as well run that real quick and just kind of see what we got here. So it looks like we're running about 553 megs, and just kind of wanted to zoom in there, but it's not zooming, so there must be a different key stroke. I don't use Alacrity. Personally, I like Kitty, and so maybe zooming in on Alacrity is a little different, something different than the traditional Control-Shift-Plus. So yeah, I guess I won't be able to zoom in there. That's all right. A really good resource usage though, only 540 meg of resources on there, so very nice. And there's our NeoVim by default. Nicely done there, set up. Got our PyCom settings there, cute utilities, Rofi, and a Rofi theme selector. So that's kind of cool. We can go in here and just kind of change our themes if we want to change something different. I really like the default that's on there right now. Personally, I wouldn't change a thing, so I'm going to escape out of there. And I think that was the gist of all the pre-installed apps that looked interesting to me. And I'm not sure what Zathura is, so I think I'll just tap that to see what it does. And I still don't know what it is. So yeah, Zathura, cool. And there we go. I think I'm going to just kind of wrap it up here. This is a really nice look, and I mean, from what little I've done so far, this looks really usable. I think I would actually be brave enough to install this on my production machine, since I have backups and everything to protect me. But running a window manager with pure Arch is pretty bulletproof. So as far as reliability goes, I would say it's probably pretty reliable already. And I know that's really premature to say when you're reviewing an alpha, but like I said, I would probably do it only because I have a lot of backups and a lot of technical background to cover myself in case something went haywire. Now, if I was starting out with Linux, no, I think I would wait for the production version to be out for sure, unless you're testing it in a virtual environment like I am. Derek, I think this is really a great project here. I really like the fact that you created this full-blown ISO that we can actually install a DTOS with. And it's just such an easy install too. It's very lightweight and simple to run. Just like that, within minutes, you're up and running with a tiling window manager, which basically mimics Derek's desktop. So how cool is that? What better way to get started in a window manager than to have something already pre-configured that you can build off of? And that's really the way I learned. I just installed something that was already pre-configured, and then I learned by going in there and modifying the config files, and that's how I really caught on to everything. And of course, Google was my friend too. Can't leave out credit for Google. Yeah, well done. So I am giving DTOS a big thumbs up here. Double thumbs up. This is really an A+ setup here. I really like the color scheme. The QTile bar just looks beautiful. And again, the use of colors are fantastic. I like it. I even like the way the volume is incremented here. On most default setups, usually the increments go in 5. And to me, 5 is a little much. I prefer having it around 2 or 3. So absolutely perfect. So it's very clean, a nice look. I recommend, if you haven't tried it already, jump out there and get a copy of DistroTube's ISO and stick it on a VM or a spare laptop that you don't need and just play with it. I think you might discover, if you haven't used a tiling window manager yet, you might just discover a whole new universe, just like Derek did when he started messing with EMacs. So how cool is that? And with that, I hope this little quick sneak peek here at the DTOS ISO was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And hit subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, subscribe again. Wait, no, you can't do that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.